In this week's podcast, is there life on Venus?
Plus, we look at our favorite lunar landing.
Don't forget to get in touch with us on social media at Space and Things Podcast on Facebook and Instagram, and Space and Things 1 on Twitter.
And please give us a review or a rating on your podcast platform if there is the option to do so. But for now, sit back, grab some butter cookies, and enjoy episode 3 of Space and Things.
You're listening to the Space and Things Podcast with Emily Carney and Dave Giles.
Hello, I'm Emily Carney.
And I'm Dave Giles, and welcome to episode 3. How you been, Emily?
I've been doing well. It's been kind of a weird week because we've had a tropical storm where I'm at. For a few,
wow.
It's been sitting around. Well, now it's a hurricane, but we're okay. We're safe here. We just got a lot of rain, no damage or anything like that, thankfully. But
What's it called this time?
Sally.
Sally. Oh, that's
Yes.
That seems like quite an innocent name for a storm.
Yeah, but we're okay though. We just got a lot of rain, and that's basically it. Nothing horrible. I hate to say it, if you live in Florida, it's par for the course that you get tropical storms.
Of course, yeah.
So, yeah, not really too shocking, but yeah, so that's really all that's been going on here. Otherwise, I'm just chilling, doing my thing. And you?
Yeah, not too bad. I've been a bit busy. We've had this crazy weather here this week as well. It went from being cold to suddenly we've had a little bit of a heat wave. And a friend of mine said, let's go and play golf today. And we both struggled in the heat big time. We did 12 holes. We only did 12 holes. And by the end, we were exhausted. But it was good fun just getting outside and going and do something. But
yeah, exactly. It's good to just get outside, and like lately I just go out for walks and stuff, and I try. I mean, obviously I'm very safe, but I have gone out to eat a few times. I'm probably going to have a lot of people get on me, but it's very safe. Most places are not crowded, and everybody's wearing a mask, so I don't feel particularly threatened personally, but yeah, it's nice to, start getting out and starting to do things now and feeling slightly normal.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I managed to do a wedding gig on Saturday, so that's one of the ways I pay my rent is doing wedding gigs, playing guitar for people's weddings. And I normally do this every weekend, Emily, and this is the second one I've done since March. So it was quite nice. I had to see if I could remember how to do it. I set everything up. I'm like, is this right? I think this is right. But
yeah, I totally get it. Everything's just been thrown into a big old tizzy, so it's
so funny. Yeah, it's very amusing, very amusing. But I didn't forget anything. I managed to get through it, so that was all good. Anyway, shall we get going with this week's episode?
Yep, absolutely.
Perfect.
Roger, our guidance recommendation is pings, and you're cleared for takeoff. Roger, understand. We're number 1 on the runway. Roger.
I'll be honest, Emily, when I asked you to do this podcast, I really didn't think that so much was going to happen week to week. I know we're only on episode 3, but it's been another crazy week with loads of stuff going on. Is it normally this busy in the space exploration world, or was I just not paying attention before we were doing this?
It really has been a crazy busy time, especially this summer. Just with the Crew Dragon launch to Perseverance, just to what's going on now with the big news that came out, the potentially big news that came out this week. It has been kind of a whirlwind. So yeah, there's a lot going on, and that's why I'm so glad we're doing this podcast.
Yeah, same. So yeah, that does bring us to that big news and the question: is there life on Venus? This is like the most 2020 story that could happen, isn't it?
Yeah, I did not honestly have potential life on Venus on my 2020 bingo card this year.
Exactly. It's ridiculous. I was like, when you sent me the link, I was like, no way, that's ridiculous. So for those of you who may have missed this story, they've found phosphine gas in the sky in Venus. I believe that's kind of what it is, about 30 miles up from the surface.
Yeah, in the cloud. That you are correct, in the cloud decks on Venus.
Yeah.
Yeah, very nuts. Not really something like anybody I think expected. Like I said, the very 2020 news, because I'm just like, who thought this was like out of nowhere? Like I was thinking, because I did hear kind of through the grapevine, there's going to be a big announcement about planetary space, and I'm thinking, oh, they found something on Mars,
Yeah.
right? Like, oh, they found something, and no, I was not expecting, out of all the planets, I'm like, what, Venus?
Yeah,
Like, what?
exactly. So, I mean, it's just nuts. I mean, I've had to look this up because I didn't know what phosphine gas was, but my limited research has shown that it's a gas. And
yes,
and it's on the Earth, it's released by microbes in where there's not much oxygen, and also in animals' insides. Probably stinks as well, by the sounds of it. So on Venus, the only way they've can figure out that it's there is that they've kind of got to be life. There's got to be something flying around that's excreting this, or that is releasing this. And you can get all imaginative and have these big winged birds flying around Venus, but it probably just is microbes. But it's still exciting stuff. And I think what's exciting about it is it just opens up that possibility that this is regular on almost every planet.
Yeah. I'm probably gonna get dragged for saying this by a lot of people. I'm cautiously excited just because in past, and like I said, I'm not a interplanetary spaceflight expert. I'm not really a solar system expert. I know a little bit about it, but I'm not. I'm not a scientist by any stretch of the imagination. Like I said, I'm cautious only because there have been announcements like this before in the past where like, oh my God, we think we found something. And then, a while later you find out, well, it's just kind of a chemical aberration, and, and everybody's kind of disappointed. So I'm sort of looking at it like, okay, I'm not going to get too excited, but at the same time, I'm like, wow, I was not expecting that. That's very, I did read some of the paper because I was just curious, and it's kind of long, but I just scanned some of it just to, kind of see what it was about. And I was like, that's really cool. If anything, what I hope comes out of it is more exploration of Venus.
Yes. Yes.
Like I said, I'm not an expert on planetary spaceflight really as much as other people are. There's some people out there like my friend Jay Galentine, who's written some great books about the inner and outer solar system exploration, which I think everybody should read. But the solar system, here's where I kind of get on my soapbox. The solar system is really not well explored. Like, yeah, I think people, look at, the history of spaceflight and they think, well, we've sent probes to every planet and, we've had flybys and stuff, but it's really not that much when you break it down. And especially Venus, because Venus has such a ferocious climate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got, like I said, it was the last place I think anybody would have expected to find any sort of microbial life or anything in or around it, So I hope they send kind of more missions to the clouds to test out this theory. I think that would be really cool, because Venus is one of my favorite planets just because it's so weird.
Yeah.
And none of what happens on it makes sense to me. Like, I keep trying to apply like Earth, knowledge, Earth science knowledge to Venus. And I'm like, wait, but this doesn't make sense. And I'm like, of course it doesn't. It's not Earth, Yeah. I'm really excited. If anything, even if it's kind of like, a spurious type of discovery, I'm hoping that at least it's investigated and we send more spacecraft there. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I kind of feel like all of the planets need to be explored more. For me, one of my favorite things that's happened over the last few years is the New Horizons satellite and the flybys that's done. The images of Pluto from that were just stunning, and for years we hadn't seen these, and things like Cassini as well. The images we got from Cassini, like the few probes that we are sending up to these places recently, are sending back such stunning images. And to me, it's like we've been saying for years what we think the makeup of these planets are. But how do we actually know this? It's so far away. We're using very, very almost primitive technology to make these almost assumptions. And I'm probably doing our scientists a massive disservice there, but it does feel that with the very limited amount of information and that they've got, especially up close, they've been able to find out quite a lot already. So just imagine what they can do if they actually get something like a permanent, something orbiting it for a while, like what's happened in Jupiter at least, because that was, we learned so much from that. More missions like that would be great.
Yeah.
But I guess it's just really expensive, and to what end are we doing it? But
it's expensive, and I think people, the greater public fails to see really the use of missions like that. But I don't know. Here's my case for exploring Venus, personally, other than the fact that to me it's one of the most intriguing planets. I think maybe it could teach us possibly about processes on Earth, which I think is important for us. And plus, Venus is really not well explored. I know we've sent, I think, one synthetic aperture radar, I think is what it's called, mission the United States did called Magellan. And that mapped Venus, which was really cool. And the images from it are really neat to look at. The Soviets did send some landers up there. You've probably seen the images from those, but the landers did not survive very long. No. I think the one that lasted the longest got to about 50 minutes and before it got crushed. And it sent, a few images back, and it basically confirmed what we thought about the surface of Venus, that it was a uninhabitable hellscape, basically. Yeah. But there were some missions, I think, conducted by the Soviets and international partners called Vega, which were like Venus cloud balloons. And I don't know, that'd be cool if we saw some more things like that, just to kind of investigate, the atmosphere. And I don't know. I think Venus has kind of been written off just because, like I said, the environment there is so fierce, and to me it's just cloaked with mystery and it's not very well explored. So I really wish we would go back there. I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, I think with both Venus and Mars, they may hold the key. Not for us to necessarily even go and live on. I know Mars has that possibility, but they've more got the key to the understanding of what may happen to Earth in the future and what may have happened in the past. And I think that's where it's important that we do it. With all the discussion about climate change and everything that's going on this planet right now and what we do to it, let's have a look at these other nearby planets that are rocky and similar, even though obviously different as well, and just see what we can learn. And if we're not going to do that, we may be missing a very big opportunity to make this place even better. It's not necessarily just about looking out; it's about looking back.
Exactly.
And I think that generally gets missed from the discussion when talking about sending probes or missions to these places.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it's not a Venus or a Mars mission, but you mentioned Juno, which is orbiting Jupiter. And that's really, I actually went to see the launch of it in 2011, and I went to the NASA social for it. And really what that mission kind of boils down to is not just studying Jupiter, but they're really trying to find, what kind of things about Jupiter hold the key to discovering the origins of the solar system and, really how we all came to be. And, I just find that fascinating. And I do think, that makes, for me, I don't know if I can convince others, but for me, it really makes the case of why these kinds of robotic missions to other planets are really useful, I think. Of course, there are going to be people who are like, oh, why are we doing things on Mars when we got problems on Earth and stuff? But, those kinds of people. But I do think, it's important not just to look out, but like you said, to look back at us and think, okay, what happened here that we could maybe learn a lesson from?
Yeah. Or even get some energy sources that we could then use that then don't damage our planet. I mean, I know that's really sci-fi movie-esque, but that it could be a thing. which is, in my opinion, worth exploring the idea of and finding out more about for sure.
Right now the score is man 3, space nothing, but it's a little early in the game.
We've had a launch attempt by a company called Astra up in Alaska. Have you seen about this? This one's a real curveball.
Yeah, I can't say I know much about the company, unfortunately. You might know more than I do, but I was chilling, I think a few nights ago on Twitter, and, everybody's like, yeah, there's going to be a launch. I'm like, what? Okay. SpaceX is doing another Starlink, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
And yet Starlink's 10,000 to, I don't know. I'm just making that up. So I'm watching it, and it's this company called Astra. I'm like, I've never heard of this. I probably should, but okay. And so I don't think they had a live stream to their launch. I don't know if you saw the footage afterwards that somebody took. I'm sorry.
Uh-oh. That was what the woman was saying. Uh-oh. She's like, uh-oh. That doesn't look good.
If anybody hasn't seen the clip, it's probably still on Twitter. It's actually kind of... Yeah. I hate to say it because I don't like to make fun of rocket failures because I think, man, that sucks for the company. But I remember seeing the clip, and it's in Alaska, so it's in this winter ice land. And I'm just watching it. I'm like, oh, okay, it looks good so far, first stage, and then it's just nothing. And I'm like, oh, that's not right. Yeah, usually it doesn't stop at that point.
The reaction of the passers-by who happen to catch this is what makes that video funny. It's not the rocket's failed as such, it's that they're just so confused as to what's going on. It doesn't seem like they were even aware there was going to be a rocket launch within sight of where they were. Yeah. And suddenly they're watching one. I've tried to do a bit of research, but there's just not that much about them. I know they've got a Twitter page and they post some lovely pictures. So this was called Rocket 3.1, and it was their first orbital attempt, and it failed at the first stage. But they've since said that they didn't expect it to reach orbit, and they've had a couple of suborbital flights which they've called successes even though they failed. It's based in California. I think it looks like one of these tech bubble startups. So it looks like it's kind of trying to do a SpaceX thing. Two guys called Chris Kemp and Adam London. I don't know much about them, and maybe their intentions are good, but there's such little information out there. It just looks shady to me, and that may be just that I've got this 2020 cynicism going on right now. But it just seems weird. And one of the few things I found out was that in June 2020 they got two US defense contracts for sending payloads up. How is that?
They've not even had one successful launch. That's weird. I've never heard of that before.
Who do they know? What do they know about someone?
Yeah. What kind of pictures do they have of somebody is what I want to know. Do they have pictures of someone that are incriminating and they got...
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I'm not saying that actually happened.
I agree. I mean, that's very much me joking. And maybe we should try and talk to them, reach out to them and see if we can get them to talk to us, because there's so little information out there about them. It's just crazy. But good for them. If it's an honest and genuine thing and they're trying to do it and they're doing it properly and they're employing people, if they're making progress, then good for them. And it's great that more people get involved. It just came out of nowhere. This company called Astra, for me, have just come out of nowhere. It's like, what? There's another company? Who?
Yeah, I honestly was not really... I think I heard of them, but I wasn't really honestly familiar with them at all, so it's kind of a mystery to me as well. There is a launch photo, I believe, taken by John Krause of when it was actually ascending for as short of a time as it was, and it's a pretty nice launch photo. But the film clip was pretty hilarious. I thought, because you got the sense that these people what is this? What's going on in Alaska?
Yeah.
In Alaska.
It's just not somewhere you would expect there to be a launch. Well, actually, it kind of does make sense, but you've never heard of it before. So it's like, what? There's a launch in Alaska? What's going on here?
I need to do more research on this because I wasn't aware there was a launch facility even in Alaska, which is... I should know that.
The interesting thing is they look like mobile rocket launchers, kind of like Scud missiles.
Yeah.
They kind of look like that, the way they kind of drive around and they stand up. So it all kind of looked a bit scary. And the fact it was going on in Alaska, like if I was Russia, I would have been a little bit scared.
Yeah.
There's that side of it as well.
Yeah.
I almost certainly am being very unfair to this company. But it's so hard to seem to find out much about them. And that to me is almost a red flag. And how many other these companies are going to start springing up? Like, we know that Silicon Valley is generating serious amount of money and there's loads of money in tech. How many of these companies are now going to go, oh, let's do an Elon. Let's go and start flying rockets. That looks easy. That looks fun. Look at his profile now. He's doing that.
Yeah, I kind of wondered the same thing. Heck, maybe I don't have any money, but maybe I'll start up my own rocket company. Who knows? Emily's rocket company. But why not? It's 2020, man. Why not? Anything's possible. Anything is possible nowadays. But no, I kind of wanted the same thing because I tried finding some stuff about him because I was like, man, I really don't know much about this. And then I'm just like, I can't find much. So it was kind of just out of the blue. And I'm like, who are these people, So I look forward to discovering more about them. And I do wish them success. I just would like to know more.
I'm sure they're going to prove us very wrong with our jokes. And I hope they do. And I'd love to. And if anyone listening does know more about them or how we can find out more about them, if they have a fact sheet or something like that can help us, we will happily do more stuff on them. Because anyone starting to try and build rockets and put them in space and carrying payloads is good for them, because that's crazy and it's expensive and dangerous. So we wish them well.
Early, my hats off to the guys in the trench. I love them. Yeah, just that man that runs MSFN. I don't know if I can do that though, but I'll say thank you.
Emily, I don't know if you saw last night, but the Apollo 11 movie picked up some Emmy Awards.
Yes, it did. It got 3 of them.
Yeah, after being snubbed by the Oscars, it was good to see that it got recognised, because I loved that movie. I love that movie.
Yes. I don't know about you. I saw that movie, I think 4 or 5 times in the theater. It won 3 Emmys. I'm looking at my notes here. Outstanding Picture Editing for a Nonfiction Program, Outstanding Sound Editing for a Nonfiction or Reality Program, and Outstanding Sound Mixing for a Nonfiction or Reality Program. I definitely concur with the whoever awards the Emmys, just because the sound in that movie really is
overwhelming.
Yes, like the launch part of the film, I was like, oh my gosh. Before I saw Apollo 11 in the theater in IMAX, I always considered Hail Columbia my favorite movie with a launch scene, just because I saw that in IMAX a real long time ago. I was a little kid, but it was like it was still playing at Kennedy Space Center.
Yeah, I think I saw it there in the early 90s.
Yes, and it's still an incredible movie. If anybody can get it on DVD, I do suggest watching it, because the scene when Columbia makes its first launch is just like, it's so the sound and just the visual. It's just, I could watch that 150 times and not get bored of it. But Apollo 11 is better than that. It's better than that.
So it didn't come out in the UK it was really like limited release, and then the first release was actually on the 50th anniversary of Apollo 10. That week, the Science Museum did they did a limited IMAX release for museums that had IMAXs. And so that went on in the Science Museum IMAX, and I went down there with a friend who's she humors me about this stuff and will come and visit this kind of thing with me. And the launch sequence, the two of us were both in tears. The footage is unbelievable. Some of those angles and the colours are just outrageous. But the sound is unbelievable.
Yeah.
So the fact they've got their Emmys for the sound is 100% right. And I bought the Blu-ray, and it sits here, and anytime I've got a guest round now, and they talk about, I've got my Saturn V Lego here and all that kind of stuff, and they start talking about it, and they're like, what's all this about? And I say, look, can we just watch this launch sequence? Just watch it. And I turn it up. I've got my Sonos bar, and I turn it up, and they're like, can we watch the rest of this? And I made my parents watch it on Christmas Day this year. All that kind of stuff. It's such a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful film, and the song that that's playing as they're coming back from the moon as well. All of that. There's so many little factors of it which I love.
Yes, when I saw that in the theater, like you said, I was crying like a baby. Like I remember coming out of the theater, going to the bathroom, and coming. I have like this mascara all over, all down my face, having to clean my face up before I leave the theater. It was just beautiful. Like another like little snippet of the movie. For those of you who haven't seen it yet, this is a minor spoiler. I mean, there's not many spoilers. That they go to the moon. So they go to the moon, just so you know, and they come back. And Neil Armstrong walks on the moon. There you go. I'm sorry, don't spit out your water. He's drinking water right now. For those of you who are at home, you can't see this, but oh no, amazing. I'm so sorry. I know, right? Great. You never expected that.
No, I didn't.
But no, for those of you who haven't seen the movie though, when there is a scene where they're being suited up before they go to the launch pad, and I love that kind of little montage of what their lives were before Apollo 11. I was like, oh my God, like I love that because it really it summed them up without having to have a narrator.
Yeah, like, so powerful. And I think that's why I love that film as well so much. Is it's no talking heads. It's not old people sitting there like you see them. And I love those documentaries where they pull out all the old astronauts because I love them to bits. You know that.
Yeah.
But this was so different because it was all fresh and it was all cleaned up for stuff I thought I'd seen before, but it looked new, and then loads of stuff I'd not seen before when I thought I'd seen it all, especially Apollo 11, and it was like, this is just amazing. And it's cleaned up so well. All the stuff before the launch of all the people in the crowd, I mean, that could be shot yesterday with people in costumes. It looks that real, and it doesn't look like old footage. It looks like modern footage. It's so well cleaned up. So yes, if you haven't seen it, go and see it. Well done for winning all the Emmys.
Yes, you need to see it now. It's if you're a space enthusiast, you've probably already seen it. But if you're kind of on the fence about space enthusiasm, you got to get this movie now. It's incredible. Like I said, I think I watched it in the theater. I think 4 or 5 times. I just was like an addict. I was like, I got to see the launch. At least the launch scene was just oh my God, this is just something otherworldly. It's amazing.
And if you're in any museums that are advertising it, it will just be, I think it's called the Small Steps Edition or something like that they have in various museums that have IMAXs. I mean, that's worth, to hear it in IMAX as well is another level. And there's not much. There's quite a lot cut out from the full feature length, but all the launch stuff is there, which is what you want. But Emily, while we're talking about movies and TV stuff, I'm sure, like me, everyone's been talking to you about Away or asking you questions about this new Netflix show called Away.
Yeah.
With Hilary, I can't say her name. This is really bad. I tried doing this last night. I can't say the R in her name. Hilary Swank. I keep saying Hillary. Anyway, because of the W in her second name, it's one that's just it's a tongue twister for me, and it shouldn't be. Anyway, there's a new Netflix series called Away, and it's about a trip to Mars, essentially. And it's a bit of a drama, but I binged it yesterday because everyone's been messing me going, I don't know if it's real. I don't know how, like, you'll probably watch it and think, oh yeah, that wouldn't happen. But to me, any kind of drama or anything that's set in space, which is good, I'm all in. And I thoroughly enjoyed it from the first episode. The premise is there's an American astronaut, a Chinese astronaut, a cosmonaut, Russian cosmonaut, a British guy from ESA, and an Indian astronaut, and they're commanded by Hilary Swank, yes. And they go to the moon and then they go to Mars. And it's just wonderful. In terms of technically, I have no idea how realistic it is. Because I'm just not, they go to Mars. Well, okay. And it was hard. Well, I think going to Mars is hard. So therefore, it's probably realistic. Anyway, the thing that got me, which struck me as odd, is that the crew didn't seem to know each other very well. Yeah,
they train for a very long time normally. So, Yeah, normally, like I know we talked last week about Skylab 4, and those guys were training together for about 7 years. They knew each other pretty well. I mean, they hung out with each other. They were, they knew each other inside and out pretty much. So, yeah.
But it is wonderful, and if anyone goes to see it, I'd love to hear your opinions on it. I don't want to spoil it. It is a drama. It's a bit a little bit trashy maybe, but it's it's space. It's great. So I thoroughly recommend people checking that out. And I would like to know what you think. There's also some cool graphics because they've merged all the logos of the different space agencies. So it's NASA. I'm like, what NASA logo is that? That's not a meatball, and that's not. And it's merged using the letters from the different logos.
That's cool.
And it's things like that. I'm like, yes, like that. And it's all about space diplomacy as well, which I is a big passion of mine, actually, space diplomacy. I think it might be because I'm not American and love NASA so much. But I went to a talk with Michael Collins last year all about space diplomacy, and Buzz turned up, which was great, and he has a lot to say about it. And ultimately, I love the idea of everyone working together to try and do stuff. I think that's the great thing about the ISS as well. So for me, that aspect of it was great. Anyway.
Yeah. Oh, I totally, as an aside, I totally believe, if we're going to go, back to deep space, we have to work with other nations and learn how to work with a diverse set of people that might not speak English, because when we eventually settle space, we're not going to all be Americans up there. We have to learn how to, work with British people, work with someone from China, Japan, India, what have you. So I agree with you completely.
Yeah, and I'm sure I'd love to do a whole episode on space diplomacy because I've got a lot to say about that. I think
I think that's a great idea.
Cool. We'll put that on the schedule.
The future list.
Okay, relax. Everything's okay.
Finally, in our roundup, I think this is big news. The former NASA administrator, Charles Bolden, has done a massive 180 on the Space Launch System, the SLS, which is NASA's big rocket, as we mentioned last week, which they're hoping to build, or are building, for future long-range crewed missions to the Moon and Mars. He was in charge of NASA when SLS was first created, and he oversaw the development. And even though it's currently cost $20 billion, he's now saying no more. That he doesn't think it's viable. He's not the administrator anymore, obviously. In 2014, he said, let's be very honest, we don't have a commercially available heavy lift vehicle. The Falcon 9 Heavy may come someday. It's on the drawing board right now. SLS is real. 2 years later, he doubled down. If you talk about launch vehicles, we believe our responsibility to the nation is to take care of things that normal people cannot do or don't want to do, like large launch vehicles. I'm not a big fan of commercial investment in large launch vehicles just yet. And then this week he said SLS will go away. It could go away during a Biden administration or the next Trump administration, because at some point commercial entities are going to catch up. They're really going to build heavy lift launch vehicles soon. So that's what it's a massive turnaround. It's a massive turnaround.
I'm not going to give my personal opinion on it because just because I'll get, I don't know, I'll get torn up either way by either SpaceX people or either SLS people, because there are factions within the space community that,
which is weird.
That either support one or they don't support one. It's stuff like that. But I think SpaceX has really surprised everybody, especially within the last 5 years or so. I remember 5, 6, 7, whatever years ago, they were launching the Falcon 9 little rocket. They were doing kind of little cargo missions to the ISS. Obviously the game has completely changed. In the last 2 years, we got the Falcon Heavy, which works surprisingly well. I mean,
first time.
Yeah, they nailed it. I hate to compare it to other heritage launch vehicles because it's not the same type of launch vehicle. But you look at probably the most famous heavy lift, I guess, vehicle of all time, the Saturn V. There were some kind of growing pains with it. They had pogo. Yeah. If you look at Apollo 6... Apollo
6 is a nightmare flight trajectory when you look at it.
Yes, it was kind of a mess. It was a partial success. I don't want to make it sound like it was a complete failure, but it had a lot of issues. So, even the Saturn V wasn't perfect, the first time, and there were some minor issues with it throughout, the history of Apollo. I don't want to jinx SpaceX, but they really nailed that. I mean, I was shocked personally. Yeah. Not that I thought it would fail, but I wouldn't have been surprised had the first one failed, just because it's a new vehicle. It hasn't been launched before. This is a test flight, basically. And a lot of test flights fail, and that's to be expected.
Almost the worrying thing about it was how well it went, and how almost arrogant they were in the fact they felt it was going to go well. And what I mean by that, I mean that in a positive way. Because what I mean by that is the fact that they put the Tesla in there with Starman, and they had the whole Bowie thing going on as the fairings opened, was one. I was watching it and I was like, this is incredible. This is like, it's almost like they knew people might be watching this, or this is going to be a chance for us to turn heads with what we're doing. So we're going to go all out, and we're going to do something a bit stupid and stick a Tesla up in orbit.
Yeah, it was perfect.
And then the double landing is still one of the images for me of the last 5 years. The first time that happened, I could not believe what I was seeing.
I regret doing this now, but when the Falcon Heavy went up, I was actually at work, because what happened was my friends are all like, "Man, are you going to come down to see the Falcon Heavy launch?" And I was honest to God, I was like, "It's probably going to explode, and I don't want to see that."
Yeah.
So I'm just going to stay home, and I'll just catch the replay afterwards. So after work, I get in my car. I had my phone kind of off because I'm like, well, if it blows up, I don't want to, I'll find out later. So I get in my car after work, and my friends are like texting me and like, "Dude, look at this." And I'm like, "That's fake. No way."
Yeah,
it was
exactly.
Starman in the car.
Yeah,
and I'm like, that's not real. Just no, that's not a real picture. And they're like, "No, that's a real, like, it's in space now." And I was like, and then I turned on the live feed, and I was like, live footage from, and I'm like, you gotta be, it friggin' worked. Like, it worked like right down the line. I was just, oh my God. Yeah. But
crazy.
I digressed hugely there, but I don't think anybody saw any of this coming, that, SpaceX would really change the game and do such a spectacular job, with their heavy lift vehicle. And I think I don't want to come across as anti-SLS by any means, because I have friends who work on the program, but it's been very expensive to develop, and it's going to be very expensive to fly, and it's not going to be like other, launchers where you can fly them several times a year. If it does come to fruition where we do Artemis and send people to the moon, it's probably going to fly maybe every few years. I'm not going to say I agree with his comments, but I see where he's coming from. I think I've met Charlie Bolden. He's a nice guy. He's really cool, but I think he, like everybody else, was honestly stunned by a lot of SpaceX's developments in especially the last couple of years. And now they got this Starship that's just doing hops. That's still amazing. I mean, I'm like, how are they doing that with such a large vehicle? That's incredible to me.
I agree. I think it's natural for him to, now he's seen what SpaceX are doing, it's natural for him to have that U-turn. What I'm assuming he means is that, and bear in mind, he's not in the position to make these decisions anymore, but I think what he envisages happening, reading between the lines, is that they'll use what they've made, but they won't be commissioning anymore. I still think it's going to fly. I still think it will fly. Because it's already kind of built. It's just in the final testing stages, kind of. It's like however many % done, and they've spent X amount of money on it, and I think they have to show some form of return on that. And finally, while we're talking about Artemis, one of the lunar landers has been revealed this week as well. I don't know if you saw that.
Yes, I saw. I think it's by
Dynetics.
The Dynetics lander.
Looks pretty cool.
Have you noticed? It looks like the Jamestown in For All Mankind.
Oh yeah, it does. Yes.
That's
Talking
really
of TV
cool.
shows, season 2 coming up soon. I'm sure we'll talk about that.
Yes.
Anyway. Yeah, so I will put. We've talked about a whole load of stuff, and as last week, I will put links to videos and to anything that is appropriate on what we've spoken about here, because that was a lot of stuff we just got through there, Emily.
Yes, yeah, that was a lot of news.
Okay, Okay, all flight controllers, go for powered descent. Retro, go. Fido, go. Guidance, go. Control, go. Calcom, go. GNC, go. Ecom, go. Surgeon, go. Capcom, we're go for powered descent.
So yeah, Emily, I don't know about you, I am really excited about the Artemis program, and the fact that there's the plan to go back to the moon by 2024, even though I don't think that's going to happen in that time frame. But I like the fact there's a program in place for going back in our lifetime. It's just crazy, blows my mind. And of course, in Greek mythology, Artemis was the sister of Apollo. So shall we talk lunar landings?
I'm really obsessed lately with the Apollo 16 PDI and touchdown. I can listen to that like an album, like a song, almost like all the way through. I listen to it at work just because you know why, but other people probably don't know why. But it's so much. They're having so much fun. I love it. Even John Young's one of the more taciturn, I guess, Apollo astronauts. This is not somebody who really was known for being very outspoken, very quiet, a very measured person, but even he sounds really excited.
Yeah.
And Charlie Duke is the best part of the whole thing. What do you think?
I think he just inspired John. I think Charlie's just an infectious personality, right? So first of all, for those of you who don't know, PDI means Powered Descent Initiation. So this is the point where the lunar lander turned on its engine to start going down to the moon. And it was roughly 13 minutes, I think it would take from the point they did that to land in. Obviously slightly different per mission, but roughly around that amount of time. I know that was what it was for 11.
Apollo 16 was a little high. I want to say higher up than than 11 or 12 or any other ones.
Had to burn for longer.
Yeah, but still, John put it down. Do you remember Charlie Duke calling him Percy Precision?
Yes. I always say this. I think the biggest flaw of the Apollo program was that they put a load of test pilots up there. And although they had to be the people to do it at that time because they were the people that could understand risk and operate in those kind of environments, so it made sense. What you didn't have is the human moments. Everything was very checklist orientated. And then you got Charlie Duke on the moon, and he's almost the exception to the rule. Yes, but by all means, Pete Conrad's quite colourful. Pete and Al were great, but by astronaut standards, and I think Gene and Harrison on Apollo 17 are also quite entertaining, but Charlie on 16 is just magnificent almost the whole time. Any of the radio stuff you listen to, the whole of the descent and the landing, and then when he's on the moon, he's just a little kid. He's like a little kid the whole time.
They're honestly they're my favorite mission to listen to. Even while they're doing the moonwalks, just because they sound like two Southern boys, because they just sound like two Southern guys just chilling on the moon. And I'm like, I hate to say this, and I'm sure if John Young was still alive, he would not appreciate me bringing this up. Have you listened to the part where John breaks the heat flow experiment?
Yes, so funny.
He's so upset. He's like, Charlie, something happened here.
Something happened here, yeah. I'm going to use that as a sting. I'm going to use that as the sting after this. I've got that one there.
Something happened here. Bad. And then Charlie Duke is like, what happened? And then when you watch the video, it's like watching like America's Funniest Home Videos or something on the moon, because he's just like tangled up. Because I remember watching the clip and I'm like, oh no, John, don't get caught. Oh no. And then you see all this like spaghetti, like these lines, he's all tangled up, and I was like, he just broke it and stuff. And he was very upset, I should say. He was very upset he did that. And I think some really bad news headlines came out of that, like, 16 boys foul up experiment or something like that. Something nuts. And I'm like, when they actually did a pretty good job on the moon, but I just, that whole clip is just hilarious. You could hear like the sadness in his voice, like, Charlie, something just happened here. It's like, oh my gosh. It sounded like he was at work and he broke the copier or something.
So funny. I love listening to those guys. It's little things like they tried to have their little Olympics on the moon as well, and that didn't go so well, so they had to stop that. They then got told off for doing that, and Charlie held the record for the amount of times he fell over. I think he does. Yeah. I think he fell over more than anyone else on the moon, and I mean, that's got to be quite scary as well when you know that suit's the thing that protecting you and you're falling down. Yeah,
I think he probably fell over the most out of everybody I can remember on the moon. I can't remember that. I think Charlie is the world champion, continues to be the world record holder for most times fell down on the moon. What you said about 11 is really true. I have a hard time listening to their PDI and touchdown just because it was so stressful.
Yeah.
And so much, I mean, they made it, and spoiler, they make it. But they make it. But earlier this year during the Apollo 13 anniversary, I was listening to the Apollo 13, I forgot what it was called.
In real time. Thing that was that was great. Yeah.
And I remember listening to some of it, and some of it was so stressful for me. I was like, I don't know how these guys did it, because I was just getting like emotional listening to it, because I'm like, you know the end of the story, but still you're like, are these guys gonna come? Are these guys gonna be all right?
Yeah. Spoiler. They survived.
They survived. They came back. But Fredo's probably chilling right now. He's doing fine. But no. But like it's just those. Like you said, I think you summed it up very well. Those kind of little human moments that make things, more relatable and special, and those kind of little things that you don't expect, and
there's definitely plenty in 16, particularly on that landing. And it is because of Charlie. Charlie's just wonderful. And you're right. I mean, John is that uncharacteristically loud almost by his standards and outspoken. And I think it was just how infectious Charlie is that swept him up in that. I'll put a link in the thing. I found the video you were talking about, so I'll put that in there. But the Apollo 17 one is also good, because I think Gene Cernan is also wonderful as on the moon.
Yes, he is.
There's a great clip of him singing as he's bouncing along on the moon, and I always walking on the moon one day. It always makes me smile whenever I see that clip as well. And it's those little human moments that we get from those guys. And I just imagine what I would be like if I was up there, when I'd be literally being like, holy, all the time. Yeah. I do think that, and it kind of goes back to the Skylab thing we talked about last week. Those missions, everything that happened back then was so checklist orientated. Everything was follow the checklist. Yeah. And that's fine, but you still need to give the people that opportunity to have that human moment, to connect with the people back home. And I think that's why the other Apollo missions, other than 11, didn't connect as well as what NASA hoped, is because they didn't allow in the checklist enough time for those moments.
Yeah, Charlie, I love it when they land. We should probably wrap it up, but I'll just add this one thing. I love it when they land and he's like, wow, I love that, because he's like a kid, and he sounds like a kid, and I'm like, I would probably say the exact same thing. I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm on the moon,
Yeah.
That's incredible. I love his reactions to everything. So much fun.
Yeah. So go and check that out. I'm going to play that sting right now.
Polly, what? Something happened here. What happened? I don't know. There's a line that pulled loose. Oh, what is that? What line is it? That's the heat flow. You pull it off. I don't know how that happened.
We're nearly out of time. Well, we're probably, this has been a wonderful chat, Emily. I've enjoyed this. But before we go, both of us are aware that there's a new documentary which came out on September the 16th on Netflix about the Challenger disaster. We are recording this on the 15th of September, so we haven't had a chance to watch it yet. But once we have, I'm assuming at some point this week, we will share our thoughts on it next week.
I was going to watch it over the weekend, so I'll share my thoughts on it likely in next week's episode.
Yeah, same. And then maybe what we should do, Emily, is then use that as a springboard to cover our favourite documentaries. I know we spent a lot of time talking about the Apollo 11 film this week, but it's not really a documentary. And I think I often get asked what should people watch. And although I could recommend a load of books, I think sometimes the documentaries are a little bit more accessible to the general population. So maybe we'll do that next week, unless other things come up.
Yes. That sounds great. I think we should do that next week. So,
cool.
All right. Until then, we'd like to thank you all very much for listening and for all your comments about last week's show. And a big thanks to all who pressed the share button.
Yes. Thanks very much. It's we had some lovely comments, and it all means a lot when you press share. So we'll be back next week with more Space and Things. But in the meantime, don't forget, in space, no one can hear you stream.
Space and Things has been brought to you by and Things Productions.